So I actually been a number of times in Cape Town, but I'm really delighted to be in Joburg. What a fantastic city. So much vibrance, so much art, so much edgy stuff. And I feel really privileged to be invited here to you guys. So I'm going to talk today about a book that I just published. We just launched it here in South Africa. It's called Outside Insight. And I never really aspired to write a book. And I've been working with external information for now 16 years. I expected that somebody at some point would write this book. But it never came. And for that reason, I decided one day, well, if nobody writes it, maybe I should write it instead. So that's really where we are. Outside Insight, Navigating a World Drowning in Data. It's really about how external information can help you make much more and better decisions than companies are doing today. And in the book, we are really making three claims. The first one is that decision-making is due for a major overhaul. We need to adjust to a new digital reality. The world today is very different than what it was just a few years back. We have lots of information. We call it online breadcrumbs. There are lots of information out there that was not available before. And companies will be making much better decisions if those information were utilized. We believe that there's actually a new software category is about to emerge. Companies today, they invest a lot of money and time in software to mine their internal data. But we believe there's a software category that helps companies mine all this external data. We call this software category Outside Insight. And we believe that this software category will be very influential going forward. It will help executives, it will help investors, it will have board members, it will really guide decision making across the company. And the third claim we are making, as a consequence of this, the way we run companies will change, the way we govern companies will change, and it will also have a ramification for what it will take to be a successful executive and a successful company. And my hope is that at the end of this presentation, you will get a better appreciation for why we think what we do. I'll start out with give you a little background on Meltwater so you understand the vantage point from which we have been looking at the world. So we started in Norway in 2001, and we were two guys in a coffee machine. It was a very humble start. We started with $15,000. And we had a big dream, and that was to create a global software company. And through hard work, we have been able to build a software company that scattered most of the world. We moved in 2005, our headquarters, to San Francisco. I've been living in San Francisco since. We are currently 1,600 employees. We currently serve more than 26,000 corporate clients. We have more than 50 offices across the world. And maybe the one thing that we're the most proud of is that we are bootstrapped. So we didn't raise venture funding, we didn't raise debt. We built it in the old-fashioned way, namely from revenue from our clients. And fundamentally, when we started, Meltwater was in many ways Google Alert on steroids, but over the years, we have developed into a very powerful data analytics platform. So today, we do more than 2 trillion searches on behalf of our clients. And the data that we mine are fundamentally news and social media. And in the next phase of the company, we will also have an appetite for additional data types like job postings, patent filings, web traffic data, app downloads, and so on. And we do data capture, we clean the data. A lot of the work is actually in the cleaning of the data, enrich it, make it searchable, and provide analytics. And we really come to the conclusion over the years that the business we are in is not mining data in itself, but it's really to help companies understand leading performance indicators. Initially, when companies came to us, they wanted to understand the brand and the online reputation. And brand and online reputation, of course, is a leading indicator for how we're going to do going forward. And the same thing with competitive intelligence, client satisfaction, share of voice, and now the important trends in your industry. And that's really what we do for our clients. So more than 50% of the Fortune 500 is client of Meltwater in one way or another. And the typical clients we would start out with was the big consumer brands. So we have companies like Coca-Cola, Nike, Oakley, and so on. Earlier today, we were visiting Nando's, which must be one of the big South African brands. In addition to the brands, we also have a lot of tech companies, which typically are the hardest to sell to. But we have companies like Apple, IBM, Microsoft, and so on. We also have a number of organizations. So the United Nations, the World Bank, Manchester United Football Club, Harvard Business School, and maybe my favorite is the Vatican. So my joke is that we have everyone from Coca-Cola to the Pope in Rome. And some people have asked me, does that mean that you're very unfocused? Because you have clients across industries and across different sizes and so on. And I like to think of it differently. I like to think of it as companies in every industry and every size really need insight from external data. But one of the things that we have seen is a company has started to develop an increased appetite for external data. Initially, what all executives do in order to be data-driven and rigorous is to invest a lot of good systems into understanding the internal data. But as we have developed the business, we have seen the companies start to understand that external data provide an additional vantage point. Internal data fundamentally says something about you, and it's fundamentally lagging performance indicators. But external data, that says something about your competitors, something about your clients, and something about all external factors that influence your future performance. And if you take one step back and try to understand what is happening, internet has in a very dramatic way transformed the world we're living in. And it has in a very dramatic way transformed most of the industries that we can think of. There used to be a bank on almost every street corner. Now all of us do banking through our mobile phone. Shopping in the US, most of the retailers are struggling badly because Amazon is eating their lunch. Media, I'm sure that that's the case here as everywhere else in the world. The newspapers, the media, it's an industry that completely transformed as everything has ended up online. And we can go on and on. Music, we used to buy CDs or LPs, and then we got 7 or 8 songs. Now we can pay, I don't know what the price for Spotify is in South Africa.
We don't have it.
Oh, don't you have it? Do you have streaming, music streaming? And what is it called? Okay, and how much do you pay? $89.99. And then you have most of the music that's ever produced, right? And yeah, and the largest taxi company in the world doesn't own any taxis. The largest media company in the world don't produce any content. The world has really changed. But then it's really interesting to think that decision making has actually remained surprisingly unaffected. And that is really the main thesis of our book. That decision making has not caught up with a new digital reality. And by a new digital reality, we really talk about all the new information that's available on the internet that was not available before. And we call those breadcrumbs. And all of us lives a lot of breadcrumbs. Is there anyone here that is on Facebook? 3 people are on Facebook? That's good. Anyone here on Instagram? Twitter? In average, each of us leave about 12 items on the internet per week. And this is a statistic that's more than a year old. But what these items tell us is a lot of really interesting information. It's about what kind of food you like, because most people take photos of their food. That's 30% of what is posted online. It says something about who you spend time with, what restaurants you go to, maybe where you go on vacation, and what you're generally up to. In addition to that, there are all sorts of secondary insights that can be developed from those. There are credit ratings that can be done or based on your social media profiles. Is it a good thing, bad thing? I don't know. There are lots of insights that can be mined. The companies are also leaving online breadcrumbs. It's actually very hard for a company today not to leave breadcrumbs whenever they're launching new activities. Whenever they're launching new activities, they leave online breadcrumbs. When they change prices, that ends up on the internet. When there's a problem with one of the product, people are complaining in social media. When they're hiring a data scientist, their job postings are find its way to the internet. So every company today, when they launch any activity, when they launch any campaign, they leave online breadcrumbs just like us consumers. In April last year, there was a blog in Silicon Valley that discovered that Apple overnight had cut all their external recruiters. And this was right before Apple was about to launch quarter financials. And of course, that was considered an ominous signal. And rightfully so, their financial report was actually one of the weakest that they presented in many years. So their sales had actually dropped quarter over quarter, and that had not happened in years prior. And as a consequence, $58 billion was erased from Apple's market cap. And that's a large number. We all can relate that's a large number, but what does it really mean? So I researched it and found out that BMW's market cap is $58 million. So overnight, that's the value that Apple shedded. And just a side note, BMW used 150 years to get to 58 billion. Talking about BMW, another data type that I find really interesting is online ad spend. And in this day and time, you can estimate with quite great precision how much money your competitors are spending online, and particularly on Google AdWords. How much money do they spend in each country? How much money do they spend behind each product division? And here we have lined up Tesla, BMW, Audi, and Mercedes, and how much they spend in different regions for a specific time period. And interesting to see is that Tesla famously don't spend anything on Google AdWords or online marketing because they have a PR machine called Elon Musk, so they don't rely on marketing.
He's South African, by the way.
I know. The other companies, though, they need to spend marketing, and you can actually in real time track how much money they spend. And what an incredible luxury that you can sit there and watch how your competitors are allocating their marketing budget in real time. It's a phenomenal opportunity, but a lot of companies are not utilizing that in a lot of structured manner. We talked about job posting, we talked about ad spend, but the internet is full of information. Internet is internet is a treasure trove of competitive intelligence. And what all this external information, what all this external information tells you is about all the external factors that will influence your business. And if you think that thought through, you really end up at Porter's 5 forces. And the argument we are making in the book is that in this day and time, you actually come to a point where you can track Porter's 5 forces in real time. And you pause that for a moment and digest that. Imagine the unfair information advantage you will get if you fully understand Porter's 5 forces and can track that in real time. Think about the information advantage you have compared to your competitors that only mine their internal data. And for this reason, the argument we are making is that decision needs to change. Corporate decision making needs to move from introvert to extrovert. They need to move from internal data to external data. And let's look at the way decision making is done today. Decision making is mostly based on the internal data, like last month's sales, last month's profit, last month's cash flow, last month's client acquisition. Internal data, and the focus is about yourself. All your internal data is really about yourself. It's really a measure for how strong your operational execution is. And the analytics is lagging indicators because by the time the numbers get into your ERP, these events took place already. So the numbers you're analyzing are shadows. They're outdated information. And the cadence with which you analyze this data are typically monthly or quarterly. At the end of each month or at the end of each quarter, you pour over your numbers. How many clients did we sign up? How many did we lose? What is the profit? What is our margin? And then we do course correction accordingly. And for that reason, we will actually make the argument that the way we make decisions today is actually very reactive. And one way to put it is that if you run your business on your internal data, it's like driving your car, looking in your rearview mirror. And that's why we are so excited about external information, because external information gives you information about the future. And more importantly, it's not about you yourself anymore. It's about all the externalities, all the external forces that does impact your future performance. So using external information, you can anticipate the ebb and flow of your industry. And with external information, you can also understand what is going to happen in the future. And what you're really looking at is not to get bombarded with all this information that's out there, but what you're really looking at is anomalies. You want to see the changes, unusual patterns. And maybe you were working with BMW and you saw that Mercedes doubled their ad spend in the German market. Then, as soon as you discover that, you discovered a potential threat for the German market. And then you have an opportunity to launch your own countermeasure. Did you want to increase your marketing yourself? Do you want to change something on pricing? Or were there other measures you wanted to do? And you wanted to do that right then, when you see the reallocation of resources by Mercedes, instead of waiting a quarter or two and see how your sales will be hurting in the German market. And for that reason, we argue that embracing outside insight is a much more proactive decision paradigm. And as a consequence of the need to mine external data, we are convinced that all of you will be using a new type of software. And this type of software will be to external data, while BI is to internal data. Internet is a messy place. It's noisy. It's hard to trust all the information that's out there. So you really need a software that is very sophisticated, that packed with data science, packed with artificial intelligence, to really be able to get to the insight that you're looking at. And external data, most of that information is actually text. And differently from internal data, which is structured and numbers. And for a computer to analyze text in itself is pretty complicated. But not only is it text, but you also need to natively understand all the different languages that is available online. And just to illustrate how complex that can be, a friend of mine, he took a PhD at Stanford in linguistics, and as part of that thesis, he had to estimate how much of the text online was actually in English. Maybe I can ask some of you guys here. Is there anyone here that has an estimate, guesstimate? What percentage of text online is in English? 80%.
Less than 30.
Is 80? 20?
25.
25? The estimate was 9%. Wow, that was my reaction as well, because, well, particularly if you are in an English-centric language. I'm based in San Francisco, and it's easy in an English-centric language to think that everything's out there is in English. And of course, English is prolific. But if you think about all the people out there whose first language is not English, you start to understand how social media must be littered with all sorts of languages, and that English is not necessarily the first language of choice. So a software that's going to analyze all this external information also need to be natively understanding all the different languages and have the data science sophistication to be able to aggregate insight across these languages. Not trivial. And outside insight will also introduce a new level of transparency, because the information that is provided is third party. And if you sit on a board, if you're an executive and you're looking at reports presented to you by others, in addition to looking at the narratives of the report themselves, you also have the opportunity to lean on third-party data that can do an apples-to-apples comparison, how well you are doing compared to your competitors along key strategic dimensions. And those dimensions could be client satisfaction, it could be how much you're investing in product innovation, it could be how much you're investing in marketing, or whatever it is. But imagine the luxury it is to actually, with confidence, say, we are investing at average or above average compared to our industry. Or our clients are happier than our competitors. And to be able to track that in real time is, of course, a tremendous advantage. But it also creates a completely new level of transparency in every level of the organization. And in long term, version 2.0 of Outside Insight will provide not only insight, but also recommendations for decisions. So I'm convinced that Outside Insight as a software that all of you will be using will take a page from the playbook of algorithmic trading. So for the book, I researched that the top 3 hedge funds in the world are algorithmic. Out of the top 8 hedge funds in the world, 6 are algorithmic. And the reason why algorithmic trading has become so prolific is that to trade shares today, you actually need to literally process billions of data points and make decisions in real time. And I'm convinced that's going to be the world that executives are living in the future. Once external information are taken seriously and properly incorporated into decision making, we will have to deal with billions of data points and expected that we make decisions in real time. And the ramification of that, I think, is significant. Not only will we have a software that recommends decisions, it will spin up simulations, score and rank decision opportunities in terms of risk and return, and based on the kind of objectives you have as a company. But I think it also will change the profession of executives. There will be different qualities that executives need to have in order to be successful. And I think for one thing, that what will separate great executives from good executives is that great executives are sufficiently data science savvy. They have the strength and the confidence to challenge the AI. Because if you just blindly execute what the AI is saying, what kind of value add are you really making? And I think, although AI is inevitably coming into any aspect of life, and certainly corporate decision making, I do think that the human has a role to play. I do believe that human judgment, along ethics, along intuition, always will be a really important contribution. And AI and Outside Insight will never be more than a technical tool that is at your disposal that help you in making the right decision. And one analogy will maybe be that a GPS can help you understand the landscape and where you sit in the landscape. But it's a judgment call of the human, it's a judgment call of the executive, decide whether you want to take on that mountain straight up or whether you want to walk around the mountain. That's a judgment call that we as humans will do at the end of the day. So in summary, I will say we're living a new digital reality. There are lots of breadcrumbs out there, and currently they're not really utilized. And I think it's exciting times where we can actually, in real time, track Porter's 5 forces. And it's clear that those people that do that will have a tremendous information advantage over people that don't. I think all of us need to think of, we need to move from introvert to extrovert, need to move from internal data to external data, need to move from a myopic internal view of the world to really understand all the things that happen in our overall industry, and fundamentally move from reactive to proactive. Outside Insight, whether it's going to be called Outside Insight or not, there will be a software, I think is inevitable. There will be a software that will mine all this external information and will be instrumental in corporate decision making going forward. And the ramification of that are actually a little hard to fully appreciate today. I think it will change, as we talked about, what it will require to be a successful executive. I think it will change fundamental things like what constitutes a healthy business. Today, when we think about a healthy business, we talk about cash flow, EBITDA, profit, growth. But all of those are lagging performance indicators. If you fully embrace the Outside Insight paradigm, maybe a better score for a company's health is how well you're ranking along the key strategic dimensions that shows how well you're doing compared to your competitors. With that note, I'd like to thank all of you for your attention. If you want to learn more about Outside Insight and Meltwater and myself, we have created a small bot, just for fun, just for kicks. So it's a Facebook bot that you can download and play around with and learn some more. Thank you so much.